Good day folks, my name is Les. I'm going to show you some modifications I did on some drill presses, or as other people know them, pedestal drills. The first one I did a modification on is this one here. The modification was all about being able to turn the table, this round table, into an indexable table. In other words, so that you could drill holes equally spaced on a flange. Excuse me, John, if you wouldn't mind just coming in here. One of the first things I did was put a chamfer on the bore here. Reason for that is so that I could locate my drill chuck to the center of the table. The reason for that I'll explain a little bit later on. The main modification was around the circumference of this round table. As you can see here, there's two sets of holes. The top set of holes, there's 120 holes in total, which allows me to index the table in increments of 3 degrees. The bottom set of holes here, as you can see here, there's 72 holes in total, which allows me to index the table in increments of 5 degrees. How I did this is a good friend of mine, Greg Houghton, kindly let me use his machine shop. I took this table down to his place, put it up onto a rotary table, one of those rotary tables that you can turn up to 90 degrees, and I drilled these sets of holes. Another modification here is this bracket that you can see here. Underneath this round table, maybe I should just take this off so you can get a better view. Underneath this round table, you have a slot running through this bracket here. That slot is part of the clamping mechanism of the table, and in that slot I put this bracket. In this particular case, that slot was 3mm wide, so my bracket here obviously is 3mm. I'm just going to put the table back for a while. I'm going to take this bracket off and just show you what the bracket looks like. But prior to that, let me just mention that I used, believe it or not, I used spring-loaded door stops to act as my location pins. If you could come across this side, John, and just zoom in a bit around this area here. This is a spring-loaded door stop where I took the outer cover off, turned the point of the pin just to suit these holes, as you can see there. And the beauty about this is once that you've located your hole, to release you just press that button and it all jumps out again. Quite a handy way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it, but that's the way I did it. Now I'm going to take this bracket off so that you can have a better look at it. That's the bracket here. There are the door stops, as you can see. I put two door stops on so that I could use the one for locating on the upper set of holes and the other one for the lower set of holes. I'm going to turn the bracket around a little bit so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. Dimensions, there's no good really giving you dimensions because a lot depends on your particular machine as to what the dimensions should be. Just one thing I wanted to mention, after I'd finished it, I had to put on an extra little bracket here just to give it a little more strength around this area. Now I'm going to show you one of the work pieces that I've done on this machine, which is this particular flange you can see here. if you look along the circumference here, you'll see a whole lot of series of holes. In this case, there were 72 holes, and it rolled reasonably accurate along that circumference. The indexing was good, etc. Now, there is another modification I did on other machines, which I'd like to show you as well. I'm just going to put this down here. And I'm going to show you this red machine that you see here. On this machine, I basically extended the throat depth. This little machine you see here is one of those cheap Chinese machines, and I think the throat depth was about 110 millimeter. I've now modified it to a throat depth of around about 250 millimeter. What I must mention is when you increase your throat depth, obviously you've got to make a bigger table so that your draw chuck or your draw pieces above the draw chuck as such. Now we're going to move over to another machine, which is basically exactly the same machine, but it's just one that I've stripped so that I can show you exactly what I've done. Where when you buy the machine, obviously it comes without this flange and what have you, and the column as such was that sort of overall length. I cut a piece off this column here to allow me to extend the throat depth as such. When you do cut this piece, be careful not to cut it too long. Ideally, you want the bottom of the draw chuck just to be slightly above the bottom of the pipe once it's all assembled. If you look here, where my hand is, John, sorry, you'll notice that the bottom of the draw chuck is quite a bit above the bottom of this column as such. I made a mistake there. I should have actually made it in such a way that the chuck was either level or a bit below. But, you know, being the first one off, these things do happen. Now let me show you what else I've done. I made what I call spigot washers, two types. One with a thread in. In my case, I used a M12 thread, and the other one with a clearance hole. Coming back to the threaded one, I machined a little recess here so that once it clamps onto the flat bar, which you'll see later, you'll see why I put that there. Threaded, as I said, cut a bit of a groove in it just to clear the welding that you see inside the pipe. This is a welded pipe. I'm going to put this one together just to give you some idea of what it's all about. Threaded spigot washer, clearance spigot washer, nylock nut, now as you can see, I'm screwing this in. That is like an assembly completely on its own once you tighten that nice and firm with the spanner, which allows me to put this nut on without anything turning as such. Now I'll go back to this section here. There's my nylock nut. There's my spigot washer at the bottom here. That is the one with the clearance hole. I'm going to turn this one up again. That spigot washer you see under that piece of flat bar, That's the one with a thread on. You screw that one up, and that assembly gets all tightened together. That in turn allows you to put this assembly on. In my case, I put a flange here to be able to index the drilling head as such. I needed to do it for a particular job. It's not really a common requirement. If you think this is not necessary, do away with a flange and just extend your throat depth. I'm going to put this assembly together so that you can see what I've done here. I'm only going to use one bolt as such, just for demonstration purposes. Oops. Here, something's wrong. That goes in there. Okay, I've got it upside down, but it doesn't really matter. That bolts onto there. Just one thing I want to mention here. I used flat bar here, 80 by 10 flat bar. I was drilling a soft material, so strength wasn't of a major issue, or rigidity wasn't a major issue. Ideally, I would recommend a piece of channel rather than just flat bar. As you can see, that's part of the assembly. This head now fits on top here. Just going to try to show you quickly. And the head fits on there, and there you have your increase of throat depth from the column here to the center of your hole. I put a couple of extra holes in here so I could vary my throat depth, but I found that this one was the one I needed. I'd like to mention one more thing while I'm about it. A couple of mistakes that I made, being the first one off. I mentioned that I used a M12 threaded bar in the middle here. If you want more rigidity as such, maybe increase that to M16. Obviously, if you've got a much bigger machine and your main column as such is of a bigger diameter, you can use a bigger threaded bar nut. Another thing I'd like to mention, the discs that I used here to allow me to index the head, I used 6mm. I used 200 diameter by 6mm thick. Again, if I had to make it again, I would rather go slightly thicker here, maybe 8 or 10mm, just to give it a little more rigidity. This machine here, the red one, I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see the head is cocked over at the angle. I've extended the table, which I've mentioned, and that's basically it. I just want to thank you folks for watching, and I hope you've learned something from it. Thanks again. Bye for now.